eventually, my hope is AI will be able to say, I know you have to focus on 7 different things, but these are the 2 that are going to affect your mortality.
Did you know that 1 out of 2 adults has high blood pressure and most don't even know it? Heart disease is the leading cause of death globally and in the United States. And today we're talking about heart health and the future of healthcare with AI. Welcome back to the Rena Malik MD podcast, your trusted guide for leveling up your health, sex life, and relationships with evidence-based tools. I'm your host, Dr. Rena Malik, urologist and pelvic surgeon. And today we're diving into the future of cardiac medicine with a true pioneer in the field, Dr. Amy Butt, live from the HLTH conference. Dr. Butt is a leading cardiologist at Harvard Medical School, Chief Innovation Officer of the American College of Cardiology, and chairs the FDA Digital Health Advisory Committee. In this episode, you're going to learn how to understand your risks for heart disease and how AI is a powerful tool that will change your experience in medicine and how you manage your health. I know you do a lot of work with artificial intelligence. So how, as a patient, can they expect that artificial intelligence will improve their experience and their outcomes?
I think the first thing that we think about with artificial intelligence, I don't love the word artificial. I like to call it collaborative intelligence, right? It's something that's helping us. But for patients, what we have to recognize is partly the experience with the healthcare system. It's not really all that smooth anymore. It takes a long time to understand what you need, get an appointment. And I think a lot of the efficiencies of healthcare are going to improve. So that's on the medical hospital clinic side. If you're thinking about being a patient, gosh, what an opportunity for patient agency. You know, people used to say Dr. Google and things like that, but now we can really take all the information that's out there and we can turn it into something that you can understand. So for example, I was reading something about cars the other day and I was like, I don't get it. And I said, explain this to me like I'm an 8th grader. And it did something. Then I said, explain it to me like I'm a cardiologist. All of a sudden they turned the car parts into heart parts for me and it clicked. And I was like, yes, I get it. And so in that sense, generative AI, this large language model, chat GPT type thing, that's going to be really interesting for patients to be able to learn more about themselves and then come to healthcare much more informed, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're looking for.
It's so important. I mean, that's why I'm on social media. That's why I started on social media, is really to like teach people and educate them at home, because we have such little time with patients to really educate them on what's going on. And so if AI can help in that way, that's great.
The one thing I'll say to you about you, though, is you're unique. I think we do have a little problem with culture in medicine, which is we're very paternalistic, right?
Absolutely.
Or maternalistic. And this idea of like, do what I say. And I think we need to really change. The phrase I like to use is it's not consumerism, it's patient agency.
Yeah.
Like, wear your wearables, look up information, ask ChatGPT. Ideally, they're going to be more medical-based large language models. So you're not actually asking like literally the ChatGPT, but you have a medical one. Get that information. And it's our job as doctors and nurses to want our patients to want to know more about themselves. So there's a little culture change. So people may feel a little pushback. Not everybody is like you.
Yeah.
People may feel a little pushback and you just have to work through it with
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's the way of the future.
Yeah, it really is.
And you do some work also with the FDA on digital health leadership. So how is that going to be regulated? Because the concern that I have, right, as a doctor is that like AI, we've already seen some instances of AI telling patients like what they want to hear, right? And young kids what they want to hear and not necessarily the right answer because it wants to be very, positive.
Yes.
And so I think there's an important space for regulation. You're very involved in that.
Yeah. So we have a digital health advisory committee and I lead that group. And we met last year talking about generative AI, exactly what you're saying. And what we came up with is the following, which is we really need an infrastructure for people to understand how it's safe to use it. Yeah. So you can't just use it and expect, you wouldn't use ChatGPT to like balance your checkbook, right? I mean, you could,
sure,
but you wouldn't just be like, here, go take my bank account and do what you want with it. Invest my money. Your health is the same as that, right? You're investing in yourself, right? And you want to protect yourself. And so one of the most important things about regulation is not saying, don't do this, don't do that. AI is moving too fast for it. We'll miss something if we just say, don't do, because there'll be something new and I won't know about it. Somebody else won't know about it. But what we say is build an infrastructure for using it with guardrails that makes it safe. And that's what we're telling clinicians and systems and hospitals and companies. If you're building something, show us transparently, like, what are you building and how are you keeping people safe?
And what's the data going into it, right? Because it's only as good as what you put into it.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So I think transparency and then outcomes.
Yeah.
I really ask the companies who are doing these things, did you make stuff better? Or did a lot of people just use your thing for 3 months and then stop? Because that's not helpful. Right.
And how do you measure that?
Yes.
Right. In a meaningful way.
Yep. Yep.
And then, in the same space, like I said, what goes in is what comes out. And research itself, right? If you use research, it's already very biased. Like there's less data on women. There's less data on minorities by far compared to the general population. So what applies from research is that we don't know enough, right? And so I think that's something important. And maybe you can speak on that, is like how AI can only do as much as it's taught.
Yeah. So yesterday we kicked off health with a Women Have Heart panel on the main stage. And we were really focused on the fact that you can't apply something that's not done in people who look like you, right? You just can't say, I did it in this. I studied this in dogs and bunnies and cats. It doesn't work. The same is true for like men, women, different ethnicities. And so doing more research is important. What I will say, I'm really excited about patients being their own kind of agents, because randomized trials that take a long time, gosh, we're going to be waiting forever for every ethnic group, every, gender, whatever, to be able to do that. But if you start to take real world evidence, like if you're using an Apple Watch or a Whoop or whatever else, if you have data about yourself and your health record, it's your data, and you're willing to share that, we can start making registries and learning so much more using AI so much sooner, and be like, hey, it's not perfect for you, but if I look for women who look for you at this age, who look like you at this age, I noticed these trends, right? Yeah. Or like, here's a knee surgeon that's done a lot of knees in a woman your age in your area, right? And so now we can start really.
I think that is so great, right? Because there's so many people who've done, like in the private world, where they're not doing research, but they do clinically take care of a lot of minorities or a lot of women. And if AI can get that data easily,
that's right,
and analyze it, like we're in a whole new frontier.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So I know you're a cardiologist, and I think the important thing I really want to talk about is there's a lot of confusion around like what is good for heart health. Like there's like, is cholesterol good? Is cholesterol bad? And there's like all these new biomarkers that, to be honest, I don't remember learning in medical school. Maybe they're new for that reason. And so I just want some clarity for our audience on like what's important for heart health.
Yeah. So 5 things. They're all the old things. I like to call them timeless, not old. Right?
Yeah.
But blood pressure.
Yes.
You got to keep your blood pressure down. It is essential. 1 out of 2 people have hypertension. Most of those people don't know it.
1 out of 2.
1 out of 2. So if like anybody's watching today and they just want to like go get your blood pressure checked, like go get your blood pressure checked.
Oh my God.
Like, that's the one thing you can do for yourself.
So important.
Number 2, cholesterol. You don't have to have no cholesterol, but you should have an LDL that is in range for you, right? So lower than 130 is ideal. If you have risk factors, if you had a complicated pregnancy with preeclampsia, if you're South Asian, kind of like you under 100. And, there's guidelines for all of this you can find, online easily. Cholesterol. So blood pressure, cholesterol. I would like your body mass index to be less than 25, less than 23 if you're a South Asian. Happy Diwali, get your BMI less than 23, right? Like that's what needs to happen. I think those are like 3 of the easiest things to do. And then the other things that come are more related to like metabolic, right? Which is your hemoglobin A1C. It's a number you can ask your doctor to get for you. Clinicians know this, right? And so I think that's important. Your
below
obesity,
5.8, ideally.
Below 5.8. I like 5.7 or lower is your visceral fat, your belly fat, right? Something to work on. And then the last is probably the most important and the hardest, which is stress.
We spend a lot of time on all these other things and no one talks about stress. I find it all the time. The one thing you mentioned about blood pressure, that was the number one, is I see so many like really fit, young, healthy men who have terrible blood pressure.
Yes.
And that's why they have ED or whatever their sexual health issue is. So that's a huge one. And then, stress. Like people are like, I've got everything under control. I'm eating right. I'm sleeping right. But your stress is out of control.
Let me go to healthy men for a second, right? A lot of my friends, like very fit guys, 2 things happen. One is you don't realize that you have high blood pressure, right? The second is if you learn your symptoms of high blood pressure, if you start measuring, you will know when your blood pressure is going up. Sometimes it's related to stress. Other times it's related to other things. You will learn to feel it and you'll understand more about your body. Now, if you say, no, my blood pressure's always been great, doc, I check it. I say you're still not immune because when you age, your arteries get stiffer. We don't have a way to stop that yet. You can still develop blood pressure later, even if you don't have it now, even if you're fit. So checking blood pressure is never a wrong thing for anyone.
And it's easy.
Yeah, simple.
And then in cholesterol, I think a lot of people are misinformed and think that cholesterol is okay for you. Like there's been a lot of sort of social media. And I think part of it is like people are doing short form video and they say something and it's taken out of context.
Yep.
And so let's break down a little bit of like LDL versus total cholesterol versus sort of like, what are people, because people are like, oh, my total cholesterol is high, but that's okay. I hear that all the time.
I've kind of myself stopped looking at total cholesterol. I look at the HDL, the high density lipoprotein. That's a good cholesterol.
Yes.
Part of that's genetic, right? Like I could have gotten my mom's HDL. I got my dad's. Sorry, Dad. And like, so it's low. My mom's is brilliantly high. If your total cholesterol were high because your good cholesterol is high,
doesn't
then
matter.
That's right. And those are some of those people who've been told that by a doctor, don't understand why.
Yes.
And so I really look at that. How can you get it up, by the way, if yours is low? Fiber and exercise. Fiber and exercise. Okay. We think it makes it a little more, it's a protective cholesterol. LDL is the bad cholesterol, right? This is the saturated fats cholesterol. This is the fried food cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
I love eating eggs, but what I will do if I'm getting in the habit is I will start to drop the yolks after a while, right? Like you can have one yolk with 3 eggs, right? And you can change your habits. So you don't have to stop eating things completely. For LDL, that's the key, to moderate. Like ideally no fried food, right? Ideally reducing red meat. But beyond that, things like avocado, egg, other stuff that's in your diet that may have cholesterol, just moderate all of it. If you try and cut it out, everybody rebounds. Everybody rebounds from like the healthiest diet. So just find what fits for you is what I try to say.
Right. And I think the other thing about red meat is there's a lot of like confusion about red meat because all the data is on like traditional red meats, which are not lean red meat.
That's right.
Is there any evidence about lean red meat on heart health?
So lean red meat still actually has cholesterol in it, just by definition. And so I tell people again, if you are going to eat and you do it in moderation and you're watching your cholesterol, then that's fine, right? I think that's okay. The other thing is I think we need protein.
Mm-hmm.
Vegetarian sources, vegan sources of protein are hard, but very doable. I have a lot of good friends who do it.
Yeah.
I myself will throw meat in the mix, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also kind of, do you have white meat? Do you have fish? And can you start to vary the types of protein you're getting? So you're not just relying on like, I love steak, so I have it every day.
Right.
Like you can love a good steak and you can still find other ways on other days to eat something so that steak's like super special when you have it. Right. And it's okay.
And what do you mean? I guess when you tell your patients moderation, what do you mean? Is it like twice a week?
It depends on who you are and what your cholesterol profile looks like, what your family history is, right? If you have a strong family history, brother's got heart disease, you have high blood pressure, your cholesterol's not great, like, then we should do once a month. Like, we should really like bring it down.
Yeah.
If you're relatively healthy, about high HDL, your LDL is naturally low and it doesn't rise that much, then, you know, and you love your steak, right? Or whatever it might be, then maybe you can do it once a week. And so I think you really have to personalize for yourself when you're thinking about this and say, what are my risk factors and what am I willing to control?
And the last question I want to ask you is now kind of bringing AI into this. How do you think AI is going to be able to sort of look at these things more quickly and be able to give us more information? Like you wrote a paper on polygenic risk scores, right? So like, how is that going to play into the patient experience?
My favorite thing. We're not there yet because data is messy right now and it's all in different forms. It's not necessarily interoperable. Eventually we will get to a place where regardless of where the data is, we structure it or we figure out how to get to it in a way that I can take you and say, okay, I know these things from your doctor or your health record. I know these things about your social kind of determinants and stuff. I know these things about your history and your family. And by the way, I know a set of things about not only like your wearable data, but also stuff that other people have volunteered to put into Apple Health or other things, right?
Yeah.
Now I can put all that together and say, here's a full picture of who you are. And eventually my hope is I will be able to say, I know you have to focus on 7 different things. I'm not saying you have 7 diseases. Sure. But these are the 2 that are going to affect your mortality. Or these are the 2 that are most likely to cause you problems, being in the hospital, heart failure, symptoms, right? And so you may say, you know, I don't want to live forever, but I want to live better. And so then you can focus on that. And so when you get that information, then you can have a really important conversation with your clinicians, with your family and say, here's the thing that we should work on. And that makes life a lot easier. Most people have 2 chronic diseases. When you get over age 60, a lot of people have more, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you figure out what to focus on? It would be great to have a snapshot picture of yourself, give it to your doctors, your pharmacists, your nurses, but also use it yourself to say, I see, that tracks. These 4 things are things I need to work on, but that one's the one that's going to make my life not as great. I'm going to start there.
Yes. I think that's great.
I'm excited.
Is there like wearable data right now that you think everybody should be looking at?
I would love for people to start to get used to wearables and look at whatever's important to you. So, I mean, sleep, God, I mean, I wish I was a better sleeper. I think most people do, right? So, especially during menopause, sleep is like not a pleasant thing. So, but I think it's true. And by the way, like men also have sleep issues around the same age we do, even though it's not menopause, right? So I think there's through the aging process, we're losing our ability to have those hours of sleep. So there's a lot of different trackers. There's a sleep mat on your bed. There's things you can wear. You can wear a ring. And so I think that's a really important one. That's super easy. And you don't blame yourself for it.
Yeah.
You just get to know your habits. So that's a favorite one of mine.
Yeah.
I do think measuring your heart rate, seeing what it looks like, heart rate variability is something that a lot of the wearables give. It's a sign of how much your heart rate goes up and down. Your own baseline is your own baseline, but you can kind of see its effects. The worst thing about it is if you have alcohol, it immediately shows you that the next morning. So like, take it off if you want to go have some drinks, maybe, unless you really are trying to get off alcohol.
Like you're stressed.
And then, exactly.
Are you sick?
Exactly. But joking aside, I think any wearable right now is a good idea because it's you saying, I'm in charge of my body and myself. And it's you going into healthcare saying, I know things about me and I know how I feel. And then the most important thing is you track how you feel with the numbers and you start to see things. And that's great. I do like the blood pressure kind of trend idea on the wrist. We're watching it really closely.
Yeah.
Real blood pressure is arm cuff, properly done, validated, et cetera. But there are FDA approvals now coming for things that can give you, hey, you might have blood pressure. We had a conversation about this yesterday. Somebody tried to tell me, no, Dr. Bott, you don't want that. You want a real blood pressure. I said, look, 1 out of 2 people has high blood pressure. And we've had blood pressure cuffs along for a long time. So if there's anything that gets people to pay more attention to, could I have high blood pressure?
It's great.
Let's use it. So any wearable that's out there, just use it and get used to it. It's your data, right?
Absolutely.
Just get used to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on today's episode of the Rena Malik MD podcast. If you enjoyed it, do me one solid favor. Subscribe or follow or whatever it is on your podcast app. Click that button so you're following the podcast and make sure to leave a rating or review. It is completely free, zero cost way to support the podcast, and I will greatly appreciate it. And as always, remember to take care of yourself because you're worth it.